broadcast. Are you recording, Howard?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I forgot about that.
I said for 3 hours, it's 7:03.
Let's see, Rotary. And today is 12:10. There we go. All right, we are up and at 'em. Welcome to the Rotary E Club of North Texas. I see we have several of our members online from across the United States. Carlissa is in Fort Worth. Miss Robin is in South Dakota. Chris, Howard, or Chris and I are in Texas area. Howard is in Florida, and then David and Linda is in
Virginia.
Virginia. Yes, so we got a broad representation among us. So thank you. Mr. Chris, could you unmute your line and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge. Lead it in the pledge.
It said
All right, here we go.
Oh, Chris.
Oh.
I'm sorry. When you
We gonna let
said
David go? We gonna let
Chris,
David go?
yes, please, Chris,
Oh,
lead us
okay.
in our pledge.
All right, here we go. On the United States of America, I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
of the
States,
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. I will ask Miss Carlissa, would you be comfortable leading our invocation on that's up on the screen?
Sure. If I can see it. I'm not seeing it.
It's on the line. It's on the. Are you got your computer on?
Well, I'm on my phone because I just got. Oh, there it is. It popped up, but it went away.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. Okay.
it's working.
As we gather here today as members of Rotary, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world.
Thank you, Miss Carlissa. I also just like to kind of remind our team why we are Rotarians and who we are. So I'm going to review our mission statement. We provide service to others, promote integrity, and advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through our fellowship of business, professional, and community leaders. Our vision statement states, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. We have a lot of events in December. I want to wish Mr. Chris a happy birthday coming up on December 20th. Chris, you want to share how young you will be?
I'll be 36.
36, you are young. That's awesome. I'm excited for you. That's great. That's great for you. That's great for Rotary to get, younger adults involved in service. So I appreciate your commitment. For those that don't know, Chris is going to be our president next year. So he's taking on more of a leadership role within the club. We also have some celebrations. Bruce is celebrating 19 years with Rotary, and Miss Juliet is celebrating 10 years. So we've got some devoted Rotarians with some 10 years there. I want to say we still are looking for one more spot for a website sponsor for $50. You can advertise on our homepage. We're going to limit it to just our membership only first, and then we'll put that out there. But we already have Chris with Shooting Aces, and we have Carlissa with her Facebook fun page of her and her girlfriend eating out and traveling around and sharing their food venture. So I've enjoyed following Miss Carlissa on her food ventures.
Jerica?
Yes,
Also,
ma'am.
I ordered some wine from Krista Hartman from her new winery. And I think she's also going to get a sponsor. I didn't know it was limited edition. And she's already said that she would sponsor.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, get her my contact information.
Okay,
Yeah, that sounds great.
okay.
Well, let's see. I guess we agreed on a total of 5. So, yeah, we have 3 spots left.
Okay. We have 2. If Krista joins, that's 3, and then we'll have 2 slots.
Then we'll have 2 spots left. Yeah. December is also Disease Preventative Treatment Month. That's our theme for Rotary International. So this month, just kind of challenge yourself. How can you support Rotary International theme? I know we've done a lot with End Polio this year. For me, I'm promoting getting the flu shot. Get that flu vaccination. I got it before our trip, and I kept taking vitamin C. So I'm a big supporter of vaccinations.
And we're going to be working down the valley with the health department on tuberculosis in Mexico.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Thank you. Any other announcements? I did visit Silas, you guys, our foreign exchange student that the club graciously sponsored 2 years ago, or a year and a half. He's gotten taller and muscular and is starting to look like a man. But him and his family were great. They were very hospitable. Silas just took us on the train, went up to the Alps. We toured half of the country within 3 days. So it was really nice to see him. He's hoping to come to Texas. He turns 18 tomorrow. He has to take his test for the military. He graduates high school in May, goes to do the military in June, and then the following year he hopes to travel abroad and come back to Texas for a little bit.
And one other birthday is tomorrow is another one of our exchange students from Austria. He'll be 40 years old tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
In Austria.
That's awesome.
And so there's that. And I had something else and now I've already forgotten. I'll thank him by the end of the meeting.
He had trouble when he went back to Austria in his language class, his English instructor. She wanted him to speak English, not Texas English. And there is a difference. She wanted Royal British.
Oh, yes, that proper English. Yes.
Barely understand.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay.
All right, without further ado, Mr. Howard, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our speaker, Miss Elizabeth Yarnell.
Okay, let me get her a description. It's right here. Okay. Elizabeth Yarnell is obsessed with inflammation. I don't think in a good way. I mean, she's probably trying to help prevent it. It's not a favorite of us. The hidden true kind that is almost behind every symptom of pain, discomfort, emotion, or dysfunction, especially those with symptoms that characterize autoimmune and other inflammatory disorders. The kind of chronic inflammation that can be challenging for medical doctors to understand or successfully manage. Based on a career as a traditional naturopath and certified food sensitivity therapist, she founded the Inflammation Academy to empower anyone, anywhere to reclaim control over how they feel today and tomorrow through non-pharmaceutical lifestyle changes. Our upcoming book explores the connection between chronic inflammation, multiple sclerosis, and other autoimmune things. I'm going to stop so she can talk because it goes on, and I think it'll be an interesting topic. So I'd rather hear from her than talk for 20 minutes. So if that's okay, I'm going to mute myself so we can hear you and try to go for about 20 to 30 minutes. You can use PowerPoint if you want to. It's up to you. And if you can mute yourselves, just unmute if she has questions or wants to have questions. This way we don't make noise in the background. It's all yours, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you, Howard. I can tell that you are not originally from Texas.
No.
That was quite obvious. Thank you all for having me here. I'm actually very excited to hear that December is Disease Prevention and Treatment Month for Rotary, because this topic falls right into that endeavor. This is what we're going to be talking about today, is really disease prevention on a personal scale. What can you do yourself to help yourself avoid disease and chronic illness? If you have any questions while we're going through, please feel free to go ahead and write them in the chat, and I will try to keep an eye on the chat, or raise your hand and I will notice and pause as I go through, because I know that sometimes I get on a roll and I can just continue forward. So I'm happy to have this as an interactive conversation. I'm going to try to, let's see if I can share my screen here. There we go. Let's start the slideshow. Okay, I created slides because I really wanted to organize and keep myself on track. I've been working on a book about this for the last 3 years and have been working on inflammation since I'm going to say 2011 very specifically. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we move forward. The title of today's talk is Could Hidden Inflammation Be Sabotaging Your Health? So the inflammation I'm talking about, as Howard mentioned, is not the inflammation that you might have when you sprain your ankle, like I did in this jazzercise class a couple years ago, and my ankle blew up like a softball. But that's not the kind of inflammation I'm talking about. This is very visible inflammation. We know where it came from. It came from an injury, and the body creates this inflammation in order to immobilize the joint and allow it to heal. But really what I'm talking about today is hidden inflammation that's not quite so visible. So my question of today is going to be, could you be inflamed? So let's look a little bit about what hidden inflammation could look like. So inflammation in the head could look like a headache. It could look like brain fog. It could look like anxiety or depression or emotionality. It could look like problems with cognitive word retrieval, thinking issues. Inflammation in the sinuses could look like a runny or a stuffy nose, or chronic clearing of the throat. That's postnasal drip that's going back down your throat. Chronic sinus pain, where you have pain kind of in this part of your face across the bridge of your nose. Inflammation in your gut could look like acid reflux. It could look like gas, burping, or flatulence. It could look like cramping after you eat, or painful digestion. Inflammation in your bowels could look like constipation or diarrhea, or alternating between the two of them. I just realized that one I skipped that I wanted to mention was inflammation in the chest. That could look like heart disease, could look like asthma, could look like blood pressure issues. Inflammation in the joints, sometimes we call that arthritis. It could look like fibromyalgia, or just general aches and pains and stiffness, difficulty moving. So most, if not all, symptoms, and a symptom is anything negative that is going on in your body, are due to inflammation. Now, this is not something that is common knowledge that we were taught as children, that when we have these aches and pains, it's from inflammation. But once we recognize that almost every symptom that we might have, that is a negative thing. So a symptom is anything that could be going on in your body that is not healthy, that is not a picture of health. It's due to inflammation. So I am Elizabeth Yarnell. I am a traditional naturopath. That means that I work with people to help them heal using non-pharmaceutical, non-diagnostic,
Are you here?
and non-surgical methods.
It's about naturopathic inflammation
Things
cures.
like
Do you want to
herbs,
listen?
homeopathy, energy, water, air, sleep, massage, anything that is not pharmaceutical or medical based falls under the provisions of traditional naturopathy if it is a healing modality. So there are lots and lots of healing modalities out there. I've been profiled in lots of magazines, newspapers, television. I've made appearances in lots of different places. My online clinic is called the Inflammation Academy, and this is where I work with people who are interested in learning how to identify and eliminate the triggers of inflammation in their lives naturally. So I have a lot of different levels in this academy, and I take people from all over the world who come to work with me to learn about what is causing the inflammation and their symptoms in their own bodies. My cookbook is called Glorious One Pot Meals. This introduced my patented method of preparing one-pot meals using a cast iron Dutch oven. It is a unique method of using a cast iron Dutch oven in that the oven you fill the oven with food in a very specific way, layering the food in. You put the lid on it, and then you put it into a super hot oven, 500 or 450 degrees, and everything cooks in 45 minutes. It's really quick and easy, and the cookbook is really an instruction guide to teach you how to do it. And once you learn how to do it, you can use any ingredients that you would like, and they all come out perfectly after only 45 minutes. So it's really nice and easy. This is my upcoming book called The Multiple Sclerosis Inflammation Connection, From Life Sentence to Life Solution. This is the book I've been working on for the last 3 years, and it encompasses the research that I've been doing really for the last 25 years. And that has included what I've learned in my own degrees as a traditional naturopath and with my clients in my online clinic, the Inflammation Academy, as well as my own personal history. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1999 after I went to sleep one night as usual, and I awoke the next morning blind in my right eye. So for me, it happened overnight, and that's when I learned that 80% of MS patients experience significant disability within 10 years of diagnosis. And since then, my driving goal has been to stay out of a wheelchair. I'm now reaching the 2025, the 26th year mark of past my diagnosis. And I'm nowhere near a wheelchair. You would never know if you met me that I had multiple sclerosis. I do jazzercise every day. I walk my dog. I don't have any disabilities that you would notice or be aware of. So that's has really convinced me that what I'm about to share with you is really the answer and the best way to manage conditions like autoimmunity. So modern medicine works really, really well when we have acute care, when we need acute care. For instance, if I am in a car accident, please take me to the nearest hospital. That is not a job for a naturopath like myself. Send me to the emergency room and let them put me back together. If I need an antibiotic for something, if I have a bacterial infection that is deadly, antibiotics are miracle drugs for sure. They have saved many, many lives in the 100 years since they've been around. And that's not something that I do in traditional naturopathy. But where conventional medicine fails us is when it comes to chronic illness. Chronic illness is when you have symptoms that continually occur, maybe not all the time, maybe not every day, but over and over and over you experience the same symptoms. So chronic inflammation leads to chronic illness. So all of these diseases on this slide here, cardiovascular diseases, bone musculoskeletal diseases, chronic inflammatory diseases, neurological disorders, diabetic complications, metabolic disorders, cancer, these are all inflammatory conditions. These are all caused by chronic inflammation. That's why we're talking today, because inflammation and chronic inflammation is I would say, the current scourge of our civilization, of our society. So health is all about inflammation. You can only be healthy in the absence of inflammation. So it behooves us to figure out why we are inflamed, why we keep having symptoms. Instead of just taking drugs to try to suppress symptoms, it's much better to try to figure out what is triggering the symptoms in the first place and take away that trigger. And then you don't have the symptom, and then you don't need the drug or their side effects. So inflammation is not a mystery. There's always a trigger. There's always a trigger. But conventional medicine doesn't usually know where to look for these triggers. So triggers can be in the form of toxins. That can include mold, that can include things like asbestos or things that we're exposed to in our environment. If you live in a city, you are breathing in pollutants, actually large particles from the pollution in the air every time you walk out of your house. Additives and preservatives in our food supply are ever present, and they are synthetically chemically made. Our bodies did not evolve to be able to process those synthetic chemicals, and they can cause a lot of inflammation. Heavy metals, if you have mercury in your fillings, if you have a history of eating things like Tums, which contains aluminum, if you use deodorant that has aluminum in it, all of these things are ways that we get exposed to heavy metals in our world, as well as through our water supply, specifically, but not only. If you have well water, comes through our municipal water supplies as well. Foreign invaders can be a virus, a bacteria, or a parasite. And we're going to talk a little bit more about parasites in a moment. But actually, parasitic infection is much more common than we have been led to believe in our world. And then finally, we want to notice that foods can be a trigger for inflammation. In fact, I have multiple sclerosis, and one of the foods that causes me the most inflammation in my body is lettuce. Who would have guessed that lettuce seems so innocuous? But for me, when I eat lettuce, that's when I get wobbly on my feet, when I fall down, when I'm dizzy. So it triggers symptoms of multiple sclerosis. Not for everybody. Foods are very individual to the person. So I want to talk a little bit about the concept of a tolerance threshold. If we think about our immune system as a bucket, into this bucket go all of the insults and assaults of our daily lives. They could be anything from over-the-counter medications like Tylenol or aspirin, or prescription medications that we are given. They can be additives and preservatives in our foods. They can be assaults like not enough sleep or high amounts of stress. All of these things go into this immune bucket. And the bucket needs to stay at a level low enough that our body can process the contents without allowing the bucket to fill up and spill over the top. When the bucket fills up and spills over, that's when we tip into autoimmunity. And that's when we start to have these constant chronic symptoms. So I like to call this type of therapy inflammation abatement. So what we are trying to do with inflammation abatement is to reduce or lessen the amount of assaults and insults that are going into that immune system bucket. So we can do that once we are aware of what things are causing that inflammation bucket to fill up. So the three pillars of inflammation abatement are diet, digestion, and parasites. This is how common I believe parasitic infection is in this country and actually the world at large. But we tend to think there aren't parasites in America. We tend to think we live in a very hygienic, modern society, but parasites are everywhere and very, very easy to pick up and very hard for conventional medicine to diagnose. Testing for parasites is notorious for false negatives. And honestly, I would say the majority of doctors never even think to do it. So let's start first a little bit about diet. So my mantra is whole foods are better than processed foods. Why is this so? Because processed foods contain all sorts of ingredients. And you can find these ingredients usually on the ingredient label, because a processed food is usually packaged in some way. It's in a can, it's in a jar, it's in a box, it's packaged. And luckily, in the 1980s, I think it was, the US government deemed that all packaged foods needed to have labels indicating all of the ingredients in that food. The reason for this, as we find out when we're looking to do inflammation abatement, is because a lot of the ingredients in our processed and packaged foods are not actually foods. They're chemicals. They're additives, they're preservatives, they're colors, they're flavors. All of these additives and preservatives, I'm not going to say all of them, most of them are derived from non-food substances. So the food dyes and colors that make our foods so brightly colored and pretty, and that we're so accustomed to, and they are everywhere. They're in condiments, they're in pickles, they're in cereals, they're in ice cream, they're in drinks, they're in gum, they're in candy. Those used to be sourced from coal, and now they are sourced from petroleum. So all of these, not all of them, but most of the additives and preservatives that are in our processed foods can be triggering of inflammation for sensitive people. I did a TED Talk in 2014 called "We Are What We Eat, Poisons in Our Everyday Foods," where I talk a lot about these types of additives and preservatives that are added to our food supply, ostensibly to make it safer, but usually the reason behind adding all of these ingredients is from the food processing companies themselves, because they want to make their product more shelf stable. They want to make it more consistent, so you can have that same tasting hamburger at McDonald's, whether you're in Texas or in Maine. They want to make the foods more amenable in terms of color, because many processed foods would be gray colored if they didn't add these food colors, which people might find unappetizing. So really, it all comes down to profits that are the reason that all of these things are in our food supply. The second pillar of inflammation abatement is digestion. So complete digestion is essential for absorption and assimilation of nutrients. And as we age, our digestive tract becomes worn out. Honestly, humans as a species were not intended or not designed to live much longer than 30 or at the most really 40 years. And because of modern science, in many reasons, we are living much, much longer than that. Dr. Howard Loomis, who discovered plant-based digestive enzymes in the 1970s, believes that every adult over the age of 40 should be supplementing their meals with plant-based digestive enzymes to help break down the foods in their stomach, because our stomachs have become worn out and they just don't do a good enough job anymore. And that leaves us deficient in nutrients. And the third pillar of inflammation abatement, as I mentioned earlier, is parasites. So parasites are foreign invaders into the human body. And foreign invaders trigger inflammation. Now, the body has a lot of defenses and tools to deal with foreign invaders like virus and bacteria. We have heat to kill viruses. Viruses die in high heat. That's why we get fevers when we're sick. We have antibodies that we create against bacteria that can be dangerous to the integrity of the body. But we don't have anything that means one whit of difference to parasites. So parasites must be addressed directly in order to get rid of them and to stop the chronic inflammation that they trigger from happening. Antibiotics don't kill parasites. They're literally, the goal of a parasite is to find a host, take up residence, reproduce, and live happily ever after. But the problem is there's no benefit to the host. If there was benefit to the host, it would be a symbiotic relationship, not a parasitic relationship. So it would have a completely different name. But there's no benefit to the host for parasites. And if you have a long-term chronic condition where you have lots of chronic symptoms, hidden parasitic infection may very well be at the root of all of your problems. And there's only so much better you can get until you get rid of those parasites. So the 3 steps to inflammation abatement are to clean up your environment, clear out accumulated toxins, and to choose carefully when eating. So when I say clean up your environment, I mean to start noticing where in your environment you are being exposed to toxins that you are picking up in your skin, like from your lotions that have petroleum in them, or artificial colors and aromas, which are also petroleum-based molecules, or to use a air filter in your house, because there's a lot of household toxins from carpets and cleaning products that can contaminate our air. These are very easy things to start cleaning up. You can get an air filter very easily. You can start to pick less toxic cleaning products. You can choose laundry detergent that is unscented versus scented, because when you have scented laundry detergent, or one of my most hated things, dryer sheets, you are enveloping your body in synthetic molecules from those aromas. And you can't escape it because they're in your clothes and they're on your sheets. And so you are breathing in all of those chemicals all the time. And that can trigger a lot of symptoms of inflammation. When I talk about clearing out accumulated toxins, some good ways to do that might be as simple as taking a hot bath with Epsom salts. That will help remove, or I want to say, what's the word I'm looking for? Osmotically pull out some toxins from your cells. Saunas are great ways to remove accumulated toxins. Even jumping on a rebounder, which is like one of those mini trampolines, it's a great way to help your lymphatic system move out accumulated toxins from your body. And then choose carefully when eating. Become a very dedicated label reader. And if there are words on those labels that don't look like food, you might want to choose another product, because that means there's lots of chemicals in there. At the end of the day, it's all about inflammation. And if you're looking to reclaim control of your health, or to help prevent disease in your future, being aware of what triggers inflammation in your body is one of the keys that is not talked about that often in our world, and usually not talked about in doctors' offices. I don't blame them. They don't have time. They only have 15 minutes to meet with each patient. They don't have a lot of time to talk about lifestyle, and that's a big part of it. So I ask you to think about, what symptoms have you been ignoring in your own body? Have you been ignoring digestive issues? Do you get heartburn all the time? Are you Do you have sleep issues, insomnia? Do you have problems falling asleep or waking up feeling refreshed? Do you find that you have some brain fog here and there? Do you find that you might have some walking issues? Maybe there's some motor issues. Are you having problems with your handwriting deteriorating as you've aged? All of these things can be symptoms or are symptoms of inflammation. So I'm going to leave you today with a challenge. Your challenge today is to start reading labels and looking for products that contain anything called natural flavors. Now, natural flavors is a loophole by the FDA because those flavors are anything but natural. For instance, in a flavored carbonated can of water, you might think, oh, this is such a better choice than a soda pop, is to get one of these flavored carbonated waters. They only have carbonated water and natural flavors as ingredients on the label. The problem is, because of this FDA loophole, those natural flavors are considered proprietary secrets, and they can contain 30 or more chemicals behind those two words, natural flavors, and you'll never know. And those natural flavors differ from product to product, but they're often just called natural flavors. So that's my challenge to you after you walk out of this presentation today, to start looking at your labels and seeing what foods that you're eating contain natural flavors, and knowing that there's nothing natural about natural flavors. If, for example, you are drinking a lemon flavored sparkling water and it says natural flavors, if it was actually any lemon in there, it would say lemon or lemon essential oil on the label, not lemon flavor or natural flavors. So this is not very widely known. I kind of call this a big secret, but we should all know this because this is what's happening in our food supply, and we should be aware. So I want to leave you with a gift. You can learn your own inflammation score at inflammationinvestigator.com. That's a quiz. It's not a short quiz. You'll want to give yourself 10 to 15 minutes to take it. And it contains a lot of questions that might make you wonder and recognize about the symptoms in your own body and realize that, oh, I didn't realize that that particular symptom is a symptom of inflammation. I believe health is our birthright. We are each entitled to live a healthy life. No one should have to suffer from chronic conditions. Especially I consider that's unnecessary suffering. But you have to be proactive about it. You're not going to learn how to help yourself from your regular doctor's office. You have to look outside. So this is a bunch of the resources that I offered here today. You're welcome to take a snapshot of this and visit these websites. Hopefully you can see them. They're kind of underneath my Zoom photos of everyone's beautiful faces. But I wanted to just leave that with you and then open it up if there's any questions about anything that I've talked about today. Please feel free to just unmute yourself and ask any questions.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
One of the things I've learned, a couple years ago, I was diagnosed as being diabetic. So then I found a doctor, he's actually a Rotarian, and they had a patent on this thing about diabetes, reverse your diabetes. You don't really reverse it, but it takes care of it, really. But I'm not supposed to eat grains or dairy. And as long as I stay on that, my blood sugar stays down below 100, and I do great, but I'm no longer on any medication.
That's excellent. Congratulations. Yes, that's a lot about it. So dairy can be a very common inflammatory component. I would consider that what's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not
That
that,
is-
I go off of it every day, but I keep it within a range. Yeah, it's what he does, he cooks, I have to eat it, but.
I consider that to be a very generalized dietary advice. And if it has worked for you, that's great. In my Inflammation Academy clinic, we do very specific food sensitivity testing so that we can do personalized anti-inflammatory diets. So if you find that what you're doing isn't working for you any longer, then that might be something you might want to investigate.
I've been on it for a couple of years now, so.
That sounds great. Congratulations. Any other questions?
And
Yes, Chris.
I had a question. Lovely presentation. I had a quick question on fruit infused waters. What do you think about that?
If it's real fruit, that sounds great. Do you have your own water bottle where it has one of those little strainers in the middle and you put the fruit in it?
Well, I do the fruit juices. Like I strain it and put it in the water and let it chill overnight, and then I go from there.
That sounds great. That's very natural as opposed to purchasing a can full of chemicals. So I think that's a great idea. Did anybody else have any questions?
Elizabeth, I have a couple of questions because I know you mentioned fibromyalgia in the beginning, which I was able to get rid of that using hypnosis for a lot of the symptoms. Like it's a good thing I got rid of it because I'm able to be touched. I got a lot of kids, so I need to be touched.
I can see all your stockings there.
Well, outside of that, I was wondering because I still have a lot of inflammation I have been dealing with for years. And I know one of the things I'm like, when you say dairy, I know chocolate is one of those, but does it have to be like full dairy, like when a person gets rid of it? Because I noticed, like, I'm very healthy overall, except for this inflammation. And like right now, I've got my lymphedema pump going because I've had that for years, that lymphedema where I just swell all the time. I do notice that if I cut wheat, it lowers it, like where I'm able to actually take my rings on and off, and I'm not as fat as my kids say, but I'm still there. So I'm just kind of wondering, for as far as, like cutting down the inflammation so it's not so much. Your program sounds amazing, by the way, with everything that I was hearing. I'm like, that's me, and it ended up helping me. But I'm also wondering, like, with that dairy, does that really include all that a person thinks that it is? Because I've noticed, like, ice cream bothers me, regular milk bothers me, but lactose-free milk does not. Is that more that food sensitivity that you're talking about in that dairy?
So there are a lot of components in dairy per se. So there's lactose, there's casein, which is a protein. There's probably lots of things that we haven't even identified yet, lots of other things. So chocolate doesn't have to have dairy. If you have dark chocolate, it doesn't have any dairy in it. But anything that's made from cow's milk is dairy. So that is ice cream, that's yogurt, that's butter, that's yogurt, or I said yogurt already. What else is made from dairy? Milk, of course. Anything that's made from milk, cream in your coffee.
Butter and cheese.
Cheese, thank you. That was the one I was thinking of. For myself, I don't do well with cow's milk. Even the lactose-free milk doesn't really agree with me, but I do just fine with goat's milk. And so I do goat milk cheeses, and it's wonderful nowadays because it used to be you could only get soft goat milk cheese, like Chevra, but now you can get goat milk cheddar, goat milk mozzarella, goat milk Monterey Jack. So that's one of my favorite things to do to stay away from that cow's milk dairy.
I appreciate that. Because I like chocolate just once in a while, but I'll make sure to switch to the dark chocolate instead. But I'm like, it's not like I have it every single day, but it's good to know that because I'm like, I got a daughter, she's 3. She needs chocolate.
You know, chocolate has been found to have a lot of health benefits, so there's really not that much wrong. I know people who eat chocolate every day, but they don't eat the milk. They don't eat milk chocolate.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And
Robin, Lindt chocolates, you know the little ball Lindt chocolates?
oh, I love those.
They have a 70% cocoa chocolate. It's in the black label.
So is that going to be a healthier chocolate then too?
You know, as much as I love Lindt, it's so yummy to pop one of those balls in your mouth. They do have a lot of other additives and preservatives in them, so I would, if you are going to eat chocolate regularly, I would buy your chocolate at Whole Foods.
What about the bars, the 70% chocolate bars?
Depends on the brand.
Okay.
What about like a homemade store? Because there's a lady in town who makes her own homemade chocolate, and her store is all homemade products. Like she makes the coffee beans, like the flavoring for those. She does all of that homemade. So is that going to be one of those more where they're not as processed? Because I try to stay away from processed food as much as possible because I know how bad it is. Like I'm even buying organic lettuce. There's a big taste difference. Organic bananas. There's even a taste difference. Like I can handle those, but I can't handle the regular bananas.
Yeah.
So I agree with a lot of the things you're saying. So I think that's amazing.
I think typically home-based products, homemade products are usually safer because they don't have access to all of those additives and preservatives that the big corporations use.
I grew up with, we had our cow and our hogs, everything. So we made our butter, we made our everything. Ice cream, everything is raw milk, you know, that's the way I was raised.
That's much cleaner. And you know, back in the olden days when most people were living off of their land and the products that they ate, I'm going to say really the biggest change in the health of our civilization came about after the Industrial Revolution. And that's when we started to get a lot of these mass-produced, packaged, and processed goods. And in the beginning, there were lots and lots of additives that we would be horrified to find now. Some of them have been banned, some are still there. But there's a great podcast that you can listen to about the start of the FDA, and because that happened in about 1930. And this man whose name I can't remember, who started the FDA, who ran a lab out of one of the universities, and he was testing all of these additives that were in the food supply then, and he was testing them on young, very healthy college men, and they had to go and eat every meal at his cafeteria, and he would intentionally poison them with these additives that were in the foods at the time, and sometimes they would get very sick.
What's the name of that podcast or that person you were talking about?
What is the name of that podcast? Let me think for a second.
I love this kind of information. To me, because I've had people that are like, they've asked me this or that, and I'm like, no, I'm telling the truth. Just like with the businesses, people used to not be so hard on entrepreneurs like they are now, where they demonize them. Prior to 1965, you're not going to find that. After that year, that's where you find the demonization of entrepreneurs and money's evil and all that. That's after the 1965. So that's why I said I appreciate it if I could get the name of that podcast.
Yeah, let me Google it real quick. Start FDA and let's see if I can remember it. I think it might have been Stuff You Missed in History Class. That's a great podcast. I love that one. I think it might have been that one. there's this lab where they started testing food safety was so much in the popular mind that they even had like songs about it in the 1930s. In 1930s, let's see if I can find this. I've listened to it so many times. I think it could have been Stuff You Should Know. That's another one that I listened to. I need to find that. I'll try to post it on my Facebook when I find it, if you want to follow me on Facebook.
I will definitely do that. I appreciate that.
Well, Miss Elizabeth, I did take a screenshot of your resources, and I put those out on our Facebook page already. So
great.
it was a very great presentation, very engaging. So I appreciate your time, and hope you have a great holiday season this year.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you for being here tonight and for being interested and involved and for letting me join in during this holiday season.
Certainly. Speaking of holiday season, our next meeting is scheduled for Christmas Eve. Howard, can you confirm we don't have a speaker for that day? We're off.
One more thing about Blake.
I had to unmute myself. Let me look. Pretty sure I don't have anything. I actually do have a speaker, but I could cancel it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go ahead and cancel Christmas Eve. That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I booked the year out, so.
Right? Yeah.
Also, if you know, Blake Lindsay passed away, and the celebration of life is going to be on December the 19th at 4:30 at the Envision. So I don't know, Clarissa, if you might be able to go, I need to register y'all. They're trying to figure out how many people are going to be there. So if you think you're going, let me know, Clarissa, and I'll put your name in.
I'll be there.
Okay, you will be?
Yes, ma'am. I've already registered.
Oh, okay. And Carlissa, or do you think you'll be there? No? Okay.
All right. Well, with that, Miss Robin, would you lead us in the four-way test?
I can do that. Is it the truth?
Is
it
fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill
and benefit friendships?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And will it be fun?
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Well, I really appreciate your time this Tuesday, December 10th. Have a great holiday.